Thank you. I don't have slides, so I don't know
That's fine.
if you do have. Are you okay with the lights or happy either way? I think I'm basking in a glow. Well, anyway, good evening, and thanks so much for having me. And it's just a fantastic privilege to be here and to be part of the celebrations of Clara's life as we mark her achievement in this long overdue blue plaque that's coming later in the year. And along with our celebration of Millicent Fawcett earlier in the year, it finally seems to me that we are starting to give some of the amazing women who shaped our modern city the credit that they've been lacking for an awful long time, and that's really wonderful. And I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been involved in running this event this evening, because it's turning out to be a great evening, and thank you. And for me, I'm especially excited because, as has been said, like me, Clara was a city councillor for Romsey, which is the ward that I'm currently proud to be one of the 3 city councillors for. And it's very inspiring to have Clara as a predecessor. A fighter for national causes, reforms for the justice system, better workers' rights, women's suffrage, but also a really committed fighter for her local community and committed to serving Cambridge as both a town and a city councillor. So I've been asked to say a little bit this evening about what Clara's legacy means for me as a modern local politician. And for me there are some really important issues. And firstly, that's focusing on thinking about what we should be fighting for. And Clara fought very hard, and it was interesting, it was mentioned in the first speech, because she fought for women's rights, and she was absolutely right to do that, but it didn't stop with some women getting the vote in 1918. Because looking at what she was achieved, it was clear to me that for her, women getting the vote was not the end of the story. It was part of the struggle. And power wasn't an end in itself. It was about what you did when you got that power and you got that voice. And she worked tirelessly for the causes she believed in. So yes, for women's suffrage, but also for education for all, for justice reform, for nuclear disarmament, for workers' rights. And I love the fact that the headquarters for Cambridge in the general strike of 1926 was in her kitchen. It was brilliant. And she used her position on Cambridge and county councils to achieve so much for the community. We've heard about the swimming pool, we've heard about Rock Road Library. And I was elected back in 2015, and every year so far, we've had at least 2 election campaigns. I'm hoping we can stick with just 2 this year. And sometimes it can seem as if everything is just one long election campaign. And what Clara's career reminds me is that the campaign to get elected is not the thing. The thing is what you do. It's what happens when elections are over. It's about keeping our energies focused on serving the communities we've been elected to serve. And I do find Clara's focus on serving her community so very inspiring. And again, I think sometimes as local politicians, we all get those moments where it feels like we have to choose. So do we focus on the bins, the community centres, the bike racks, or do we focus on the big national issues, education, the NHS, workers' rights? And of course the answer is both, because both of those things affect the people that we serve. And you can see that with Clara. So she fought for the national things because she knew they mattered to the people she served. And she also fought for the local things because they knew she knew they mattered just as much. Now sadly we lost the Romsey Labour Club from the local Labour Party many years ago, and as some of you will know, it's now under threat of development. But for decades the Romsey Labour Club was a community hub, and I've heard local people speak so fondly of the many events that they've been part of celebrating there through the years. And Clara helped to build that because community mattered to her. And like so many of the great suffrage campaigners, Clara fought hard for rights and social justice for everyone. And I feel reading about her that it wasn't just fighting for her own political equality as a middle-class educated woman. She fought for equality and social justice for everyone. So she was one of the first people calling to limit the working week to 40 hours. She spoke out on child abuse. She fought for improved rights for young offenders. She set up summer schools for working women. She was a leading light in education associations. And I think Clara understood very well that equality and social justice is not some kind of zero-sum game. There's not just a little bit of it available, which we all have to somehow fight over and get our bit. Our struggle isn't over when we get what we want for ourselves. And until we're all equal, and until everyone gets a fair deal, she was still fighting. And it's so easy to think that some women winning the vote 100 years ago was the end of the story, and of course we know it wasn't. Most women, including those in my family, didn't get the vote in 1918, and things are, as we know, far from sorted out 100 years later. And just this week I noticed that Fawcett Society have launched a review on why only 32% of MPs are women. And the Me Too movement reminds us of how far we still have to go in challenging social attitudes towards women. There's so much to do to fight for women's rights, but it doesn't and it shouldn't stop there. And like Clara, we need to keep fighting for the rights of all groups who are marginalised, all people who need allies, all those who need a voice, all those who are crying out for social justice. And for me, I feel pioneering women like Clara really understood that. Now, last year I had the privilege of hearing Harriet Harman speak about a lifetime fighting in her way for equality and social justice in politics, and she said something that really stuck with me. She said, "You're often told it's not the right time. You're often told you're too young, you're too old, wait until your children grow up, wait until you've had children, wait till your mortgage is paid, you get a secure job, you retire, and so on." And what really strikes me looking at Clara's life is that she never seemed to say it was the wrong time. I was struck that she was elected a councillor in 1919, and by 1920 she's already becoming a magistrate, as if becoming a councillor wasn't enough to deal with. She forged a political career when there were still relatively few women in politics, and she worked tirelessly right through her life. So her last CND anti-nuclear order-master march she went on, I believe, when she was 85. And if I've got my sums right, she was also vice chair of the county council in her 80s. So she just didn't stop, and I think that's great. And I can't imagine that Clara would ever have said, "Oh, well, it's not quite the right time for me, I'll do it later." And I think that's really important for all of us when we hear that little nagging voice saying, "Great idea, but maybe not yet." Because I don't think Clara would have said that. I do feel that in such a long career, there must have been times when Clara thought, is it all worth it? Because fighting for what you believe in takes energy. There are successes, there are failures, it's hard work, it's tiring, and if you're doing that at a time when there are relatively few women in politics, there's all those pressures to face too, that you're a kind of surprising figure. But I'm reminded of the phrase that became popular last year, nevertheless, she persisted, working tirelessly for decades to serve her community, especially the poorest and the most vulnerable within that community. She's such a great role model, I feel, for us as local politicians. Which brings me to my final point, and that's thinking about kind of where we take it from here. And there were two stories that made me think. First of all, Clara was offered the freedom of the city of Cambridge, a real honour and an acknowledgement for her hard work. And in what we're hearing is very, very typical modest fashion, she refused it. And she asked instead for a bench to be installed for the residents of a local retirement home, so that they could enjoy sitting outside. And when the county council said they wanted to make a bust of her in Shire Hall, she said, "Well, do what you like when I'm dead, but not during my lifetime, please." So, clearly for her, I feel there was a sense of the legacy is in the celebration, but it's actually more than that. It's in what she left behind and what she was doing. So I'm going to finish by issuing a challenge. So our celebration tonight and the blue plaque is brilliant. It's fantastic. They're absolutely the right things for us to do, because quite frankly, as I said, some of the amazing women who have shaped our modern city haven't had the recognition they deserve for such a long time, and it's wonderful that we're giving that recognition so that people can remember her. But I rather think that Clara would not have wanted us to have stopped there, and that we can therefore pay two tributes to her. We can ensure that we remember her and her services to the city, and we're doing this tonight, and we'll do that when the blue plaque is erected. But after we've celebrated, and after we've remembered, I'm then thinking, well, what do we do then? And I think she might have asked us that too. So I believe we can also think, and this is my challenge for us all, including myself, we can also think about what we do to pick up Clara's baton and follow her example of service to the local community. For us to go out here this evening inspired by hearing about a woman who dedicated her life to serving the people around her, and that we all of us leave with a renewed commitment to doing what we can to fight for equality, to protect the most vulnerable, and to serve our community, inspired by people like Clara who have gone before us.